Warning, this video will contain spoilers for the Netflix show Heartstopper. Heartstopper came out over a week ago and has taken the world by storm with its diverse range of characters and coming-of-age plot. This is one of the very few shows in media which portrays an LGBT relationship with a happy ending. They both end up together, with both of them out. Neither of them dies, none of their friends die, they don't suffer through some irrelevant trauma, only events which contribute to the plot and would happen in real life. Each character plays on a stereotype, but stereotypes always have ebbs of truth to them, which makes them relatable to a certain category of people. People who either don't get much or no representation at all in media. So there are lots of LGBT teens seeing themselves in these characters and projecting onto them. They all have their own stories and feelings, and while some are more nuanced than others, it seems to have come to the general consensus that Nick Nelson is the most general character in the show and has caused a lot of, not just bisexual, teens to latch onto him. And for this reason, among others, Nick appears to be the most popular character following the release of the show. He's probably the most real character in the show, regardless of whether or not you think Kit Connor portrayed Nick well is irrelevant. You can still understand his actions and how he acts like a real person, and how a real person in his position would. Nick is the popular rugby star, whom you would expect to be some sort of roadman, like Harry in real life, or be Americanised like high school varsity football player. But he isn't, because that's not the demographic the show is aiming for, and it's not the demographic the show has received. If Nick was like Harry, then well, yes, it would be more realistic in a British secondary school. The people watching wouldn't relate to him, because personally, I don't think there would be many roadmen watching this show, if any. If there were to be any closeted roadmen watching then, they could still relate to Nick's character, as is.
Who are you texting?
Your mum?
Nick's character has to be a less conventional rugby player to cater to a wider audience. A roadman is too specific, and as I said earlier, Nick's character is vaguer. While he isn't the conventional roadman, he's still popular and high up on the social pyramid. He's friends with the other rugby players and roadmen like Harry and Ben, and conventional popular allies like Imogen.
I'm not like homophobic. I'm an ally.
Congratulations.
We thank you for your service.
He's friends like him, and Imogen develops a crush on him, which shows he is desired by the popular female gaze. So although he doesn't look and act the same as them, he fits in and they don't see themselves as different from him. His having this social status is important because it puts him in the spotlight, under a microscope where his every action is watched. And throughout the show we see that Truman Higgs are not the most welcoming to gay people, and a lot of them are homophobic, which makes sense for the area and types of schools. He has everything to lose by coming out, and it can help straight audiences understand the gravity of the situation and how it feels to be a queer person in this situation. Nick met Charlie in such an ordinary way, such a way that would make you smile at how much it happens in a real life secondary school. If you didn't know, some teachers will sit two students they ship together next to each other. Now, I doubt that's what happened in Nick and Charlie's case, but it's a funny implication, and a lot of relationships begin from two people being forced to sit next to each other because of a seating plan, and this is exactly what happens in Nick and Charlie's case. When two people get sat next to each other, it doesn't always mean they'll talk at all or have any chemistry, not necessarily romantic, but sometimes they do. Nick is clearly an extrovert, which probably contributed to his popularity, and this does happen. The internet may romanticize introvertism and make out that the majority of the population is introverted, but that's because it's on the internet and most people who use it are introverts, because talking to real people is draining and most extroverts are outside socializing. Extroverts actually make up 50 to 74% of the population, so the introvert adopted by an extrovert trope isn't too unrealistic, and many just platonic friends can see themselves in this. With Nick's extrovertism and them being sat next to each other in form, where they will see each other every day, they were bound to talk somewhat, even if it is just a simple hello, which is what it starts off as. And since they go to the same school, they naturally see each other in the corridors, and the extroverted Nick will always say hello. This familiarises themselves with each other, so when they walk together because they're going the same way, it's because of that familiarity, which builds a foundation for romance to blossom, and tends to happen in real life. Everyone wants to feel like they're normal. Even if they want to stand out, everyone wants to relate to somebody. When Nick begins to feel the confinements of his safe, straight house slipping away, he seeks normalcy through Tara, the only gay person he knows other than Charlie. We see this because when she confesses that she felt nothing after their kiss, he shows visible disappointment because he's apparently the only bisexual in a 50-mile radius. He doesn't have anyone like him. There is no one he can relate to or see himself in, and this is hard for queer teens, which is why queer representation in media is especially important. He reached out to Tara because she was the only person he could think of to confide in. It's not like he could tell his friends, because we all know Harry definitely isn't accepting.
This is a pathetic little...
After seeking out Tara and coming back empty-handed, he kisses Charlie because he likes him. That's the whole point of the show. But at this point, he doesn't actually know if he likes Charlie, so the kiss is more of an experiment. Don't come for me because I'm not ruining the moment. Let's not act like this doesn't happen in real life. Maybe you haven't done it, but lots of people experiment with others to figure out their sexuality. Nick is just doing it with Charlie. He's not using him like Ben did, because Ben stopped caring about his consent and just kissed him whenever it pleased him, whereas with Nick, this was a one-time thing which Charlie asked him to do, and he saw it as an opportunity. But that's not to say he didn't want to kiss him. This all occurred after he took the most important test of his lifetime, the big one, the pivotal moment of any queer person's life, the Am I Gay quiz. Automatically, anyone who types these few characters into their Google search bar is at least a little bit gay, as we all know. This is something every single queer teen has done in their life at some point, and Nick is no exception. This was a very moving scene because it's something that has happened to people, and then Nick discovered all the terrible things that happen to people who are LGBTQ in this world. He realises that his life moving forward, if what he's thinking is true, which it is, then he's going to face some hardships, and not everyone is going to accept him as they do now. This expresses the struggle of young LGBT people who aren't accepted by the people around them and have to suppress or suffer. When Nick and his mum watch a movie, she picks Pirates of the Caribbean because he made them watch it so much when he was younger that he memorised the whole thing, and she says it's because he had a crush on Keira Knightley. But we see the way he's watching the screen, and we know that that isn't the reason. He had a crush on Orlando Bloom, maybe on his own or as well as Keira Knightley, as most people do. But we watch his face and we realise that that was why he kept watching it. I cannot tell you the number of TikToks to where I've seen where people remember events or crushes that they've had, which should have been a big indicator that they were gay. Before this, Charlie was Nick's gay awakening, so he might have been thinking that he liked girls and Charlie. I wonder why he's only ever liked Charlie. But this helps him realise that he has always been bisexual. It's not just a recent development, this is part of queer culture, having obsessions with members of the same sex and having no idea what it means until you get older. So when his mum claims that his obsession was with Keira Knightley, it makes him feel alienated and isolated because he realises that that's how other people see him and he is supposed to be that way. He wouldn't want to disappoint his mum, so now he feels the need to live up to her expectations and he feels wrong in himself. At some point in their life, every LGBTQ person has or has to come out to somebody, even if it's just themselves. But the scariest people to come out to are your own family. Not necessarily because they create an environment where the child feels like they aren't safe to be themselves, like Nick's mum said, although there are a lot of situations where they do, and this is why representation is that important. On the contrary, coming out to your parents' family is the hardest because of your own head and the idea that you must live up to your parents' expectations and fit the mold they shape for you, or that their parents might accept them but it will change the way they see their child, and no one wants their parents to look at them differently just because of their sexuality or gender. This is why staying in the closet where it's safe and there aren't unexpected changes is much easier than coming out. So the scene when Nick comes out to his mum is so moving and emotional because he's removing the blanket of safety and plunging himself straight into vulnerability. The scene even made Olivia Colman cry with its beautiful fragility.
Olivia just sort of started crying. And at first I was thinking, God, like, you know, she's just really good.
Queer teens can relate to the anxiety and stress surrounding this pivotal moment. Nick, like everyone else, was waiting for the right moment, but he realised that moment was never going to come, so he just forced himself to do it, just went for it, because in reality there is no moment, no opportunity or right time. You just have to pluck up the courage and do it. This scene is so moving, I'm literally crying whilst writing this script, and that almost never happens, so kudos to Alice Oseman. This is where Nick differs from Charlie. Charlie can be a relatable character, but we don't get to see his whole journey of self-discovery, because it happened before the show begins, and he never really had one. He just always knew that he was gay, so that was probably the same with his family, and he never really had a heart-wrenching, anxiety-provoking coming out experience like Nick. The only people he ever really came out to would have been his friends before he got outed to his school, and everyone made fun of him. Now, in a grammar school, that's believable. But it is the 21st century, and I don't know how many secondary schools are still like this. I don't know about you, but I think most LGBT teens in this day and age haven't experienced this. So Charlie isn't there to project yourself onto because of your experience with your sexuality. He's there to be relatable in different ways, like his self-hatred and anxiety and the way he freaks out around Nick. Nick is there to be relatable because of his sexuality and journey. That's why it was so important we got a coming out scene with Nick and not Charlie. And the hidden beauty is that it's so moving that it has been giving people the confidence to come out themselves. And for a show to have that much power is incredible. Thank you for listening to me explain why Nick Nelson is such a realistic character. I was either going to be posting this or a video essay on why Heartstopper is actually pretty sad, because we will never see a show like this with a sapphic relationship. One of them would die or they wouldn't end up together in the end. The only reason this show can exist is because of the fetishization of MLM by straight girls who ogle over the cute boys. Without cute boys in a relationship, who would they simp for in the show about two queer girls? Anyway, I won't go too much into that. If you want to see a video essay on that topic, then let me know or tell me any other Heartstopper themed videos you want me to make. Thanks for watching, bye!